Welcome to another segment of provocative conversations destined to provoke further thought and spark greater questions regarding God, church, and the religious establishments of both the past and the present. I am the proud heretic, Mr. Provocateur himself. In this segment, I will continue on with part 3 in dealing with the different dispensations, the different time periods, the different relations in our different time periods, our different dispensations in life throughout our destiny. Again, our destinies, our individual destinies are segmented. And for the most part, throughout our destinies, we'll have acquaintances and friendships and other people who God will divinely assign to our lives just for that particular time period, just for that particular reason, for a segmented time period in our life. But what we attempt to do is we try to pull those people over into different time periods in our life. I remember I was at a stage in my life that I was getting ready to go to college, and I was in a particular state, and God had where it was time for me to go to school, but there was another state that was going to allow me to attend school. And that particular state, that state was where all of my provisions were. Now, prior to moving to that state, my provisions were elsewhere. And the people that helped me in the different places throughout my life, in the different time periods of my life, were very helpful and God sent. And I appreciate all of them, even the ones that probably regretted helping me in those early years of my life. And because of my antics and my foolishness, I definitely appreciate those people. And I am very, very, and God knows I am apologetic for the people who had to come across me during my transitioning and during the time period that God was doing what he was doing in me before he actually presented me in a state, at a point, at a period in my life, I was presentable. Because for years and years and years, I was definitely a vessel of dishonor. I meant no harm. I had no evil intent. It's just that that's where I was for whatever reason. Those periods was where I was. But anyway, there was a female that I met, or I didn't meet. Someone introduced her to me by way of phone. And this female began to say, well, I can help you get to the state that you're trying to get to, and I can help you get an apartment. And I know someone who works at my job who is a manager over a particular apartment complex. And I was injured while in the service, and so I was medically retired. So because of my disability, the complex that the female friend, I can call her friend now because she was a friend at that time period, even though we don't deal with each other now because it's a whole different dispensation in time, a whole different time period in my life, in her life. However, during that time period that she was assigned to my life and I was assigned to hers, she helped me because the person who managed a complex, an apartment complex, the complex that she managed was for people who were elderly or people who had a disability. And so since I had a disability rating and all, I was welcomed into that apartment complex. Nice complex, very nice. So everything switched to this state, and I ended up beginning college and all, and ultimately met my wife. Now, this person that helped me move to the state that I needed to go to in order to attend college, this person was very hurt over the fact that I did not want to pull her into another dispensation or into another period of my life. I didn't want her to feel that I used her, because she was very nice to me, very, very nice to me. She was very good to me. She was very good. She was faithful. She was loyal to her friendship to me. And I always made it known that this is just a friendship, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. Well, it was only in that friendship when we began to pull it to another level, pull it in a way that it wasn't supposed to go, that we began to have problems. Everything was fine as long as we kept it within the confines of what that dispensation or that period in our life was for. When it came time for me to move on into the next dispensation in my life and then to meet my wife, well, this person was really, really, really hurt. Really hurt. She was really hurt. And it's not that it caught her off guard, because I never misled her, but it was just that she couldn't see why we could not move over into the next period in my life together. Now, here I am, had now given my life wholly to God during the time that me and this friend were dealing with each other, near the end of that time period. And then I walk into a new state in my life, a new physical state in my life, a new spiritual state in my life. And now my life is completely opposite of what my life was prior to that moment or that period in time. And then I meet my wife. So all of this starts up a whole new dispensation in my life cycle. Now, this person is wanting to come over into this dispensation, this new state, and we couldn't do it. Her family was great to me. Each of them were great to me. Each of them treated me with utmost respect. She was great. She was nice to me. And I met a lot of good people through her. But when I moved into the next dispensation of my journey in my destiny, I could not house her there. I could not bring her there. I couldn't pull her family along. And we're no longer like that anymore, all of these years later. But when we see each other, still, hello, how you doing and everything, whatever. Tell your mother I said hello. Tell your sisters I said hello, your brothers, whatever. No hard feelings, at least not on my part. But I understood clearly who I could bring into that next period, that next state in my life, that next leg of my journey, and who I couldn't. And I had to be good with that. Then I lost along the way a lot of other people throughout the years because of the fact of my new state, my new place in God, my new discovery. The more you grow, the more you mature, the more you're going to have to drop off, the more people you're going to have to leave behind, the more hurt and angry and offended, jealous, envious people are going to become. Not because of you doing some wrong thing, or not because of you flaunting your growth, your maturity, your new state, your new dispensation, your new period in life. It's just because of the fact everybody cannot take the height and depth that God will bring you. They cannot accept that upward motion, that forward movement, that deeper depth, that deeper root into right, into what God has for you. People can't accept it. They can't receive it. So they hate on it, and they hate you for it. And then they attack you for it. Now, hopefully somewhere in the process of time, they'll get back, or they'll get to a point in their maturity, in their walk with God, in their understanding of their destiny, where they can look and come back somewhere in the course of time and mend whatever was not right or whatever, or they can at least get to a point in their maturity where they can see, okay, I understand now why God had this happen like this here. Okay, God, I appreciate it. It's good. I'm with you. I'm on it. Next time I see him, I tell him hello, whatever. I remember there was one individual that from different dispensational periods in my life, and this individual had a rough time allowing me to transition into my quest for destiny. And this person, she planted bad seed in regards to me, but she meant I don't know if she meant ill, but she wanted what she wanted, and I could understand why she wanted what she wanted. But it couldn't be because I was in a new dispensation. And so I guess out of her jealousy or out of her bitterness or out of her hurt, she wanted to plant seeds or whatever. And this is what people do, but it's not to dog people out. And there's been times where even in my now dispensation that people from my past dispensations have come into my life and tried to enter my life. And I would say to them, or I would say to myself, or even say to my spouse, that period in time with them is over. There's nothing there anymore. We don't have anything anymore. There's nothing there now to hold on to or to commune in regards to, or there's nothing there that would be grounds of agreement for us to walk on a daily basis or as a friend. Now, I can be a friend to you without being one who hangs out with you or whatever. But people won't. Let me tell you something. Everybody can't swim like I can. I come from Florida. I grew up around beaches and pools. Everybody can't swim. A lot of people are afraid of water. A lot of people can't go where you go. They're afraid. I can't stand heights. So if your calling is to climb heights and climb mountains and all of that, well, we won't be hanging out too tough. And I understand that and I can appreciate that. I'm not trying to make anyone live like I live. I do push it. I try to enforce it in my household because I want us all to be on accord, and I want to see us all prosper in all that we put our hands to do. It's the standard that I set now. If people don't want to follow it, then that's a whole different story. And I'm learning different levels of that. The standards that you may have because of where you are, people will not be able to receive those standards. You may be at a point in your life where you're saying everything is important and I want to take care of everything that God has put in my hands and put up under my responsibility. And because I'm going to be accountable for everything that was placed in my hands, I want to make sure that I take care of everything that I have. So when you get into my car, watch how you open that door. Watch how you close that door. Watch what's in your pockets that's protruding out of your pockets where it doesn't cut my leather seats. Hey, watch how you're putting your feet in this car. Don't kick the door. Don't kick the door panel. Don't step your foot on the rubber moldings and stuff. Step in. Control yourself. Don't just jump. Just flop down in the chair and break my chair. You're only being driven for 5 miles. I don't need my chair to be broken due to the small little 5 miles you're traveling with me. Something like that. Or, hey, look, would you not cut my music up? I mean, please, I'm not. Why would you change my station? If my music is bothering you, I cut it down. I won't bother you, but I'm not trying to hear all of that either. So would you please, excuse me, I'm sorry, but we don't smoke in my house. We don't, I can't deal with that. I can't deal. People do not want to hear that. Excuse me, you got to take your shoes off at the door. Or, excuse me, before you just pop up here, would you please call us? Would you let us know that you're coming? Would you call us and ask us, is it possible? Do we have time? Are we busy for you to come over? Can you at least do that? Can you respect us that much? People don't want that. People say, oh, look at you acting all bougie. No one is acting bougie or no other kind of Fuji. People are, listen, when God moves you, You cannot bring everybody along with you. They will not understand it. They will not accept it. They cannot receive it. They're not even in the mindset of God. They don't even understand. They're not trying to go where you're trying to go. Maybe they're not purposed to go where God is bringing you. And you can't get upset at that, and you can't let your destiny be hindered or your destiny be, how would I say, you cannot allow your destiny to be set aside for the sake and purpose of others in order to convenience them, while the whole time they're actually inconveniencing you. You have to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And generally, when it comes to God and how he moves you and how he progressively brings you from one state to another state, from faith to faith, from one level of his grace to another, I mean, man, you got to fold them more than hold them. That's just the way it goes. This is a lonely thing. They say it's lonely at the top. And the higher you go, it gets lonelier and lonelier. Everybody don't survive the climb up to the top of Mount Everest. A lot of people go, but everybody can't survive. You can't bring everybody along. You had to, or you have to go through training in order to successfully climb and survive Mount Everest. The pressure, the atmospheric pressure, the weight going up that high, the temperature, the weather, the conditions, all of that is so important. Your stamina, your work ethic, your breathing ability, your weight, your diet, your physical strength, all of those things have requirements, are the requirements, and have demands placed on you in those areas. And if you aren't able to withstand or function in all of those areas to a high athletic degree, you will wind up killing yourself, of which a lot of people do. They die trying to climb these high peaks. You cannot do it. Everybody cannot climb the peaks that God is requiring you to climb. Everyone cannot reach the level, the dimension that God is bringing you. A scuba diver or a diver, he has to be trained to dive into the deep of the water. You can only go so many feet before your lungs, bubble pockets of air and stuff will, I don't know if it bursts your lungs or whatever it causes your lungs to do, but you cannot go to those depths and levels if you are not trained. A submarine, it is designed to go into the depths that it goes. And then those who are inside of it are designed or trained to live at the depths that they live. But not just anybody can go do that. And we're trying to pull people and things where God is bringing us who are not supposed to be with us. Has nothing to do with them, but then it has everything to do with them, but really it has everything to do with God. Has nothing to do with them necessarily, because it's not that they're worse than you and they're bad and whatever. It's not that. People take it so personal. No, this isn't personal. God is bringing me somewhere. If you're in the military and you get orders, you can't bring your whole family. You can't bring all your friends and relatives and acquaintances with you. They're not in the military. They're not on your orders. You can't even bring your own wife and kids until they're command sponsored. In other words, until the government determines that everything is legit and they have their passports and all, and now they can fly. But until then, you can't even do that. You can't even bring them. So there are requirements throughout society like that require certain things and don't allow you to do other things and don't allow everybody to come. Do not allow everyone to partake, to be a part of. Everyone is not privy to where God is taking you. And that's just something that God determines and God sets up, and you have to submit to it. You cannot sit and fight the process. This is just God's process. It's just his process. In the dispensations, in every dispensation, he arranges everything in our different dispensations. God arranges things for us. He sets up everything. He divinely sets up everything for us to walk into those different dispensations, those different periods. Just like if you join the Navy and you want to become a pilot, well, the Navy has already designed the training and the facilities and the planes and all the jets for you to learn and become acquainted with and to utilize in order to get you up in space and up into the air. If you become an astronaut, they provide you and all the arrangements. They give you all the provisions, all the arrangements, all the vehicles that you'll need in order to go up into space, to go to the moon. If you join the Navy and you want to become something nuclear or whatever, and you got to be in a submarine, well, they'll provide you with the water, with the training, and with the submarine, and the suits and everything else that goes with it in order for you to function in that. Well, in every dispensation, God grants us the necessary provisions that we'll need in order to sustain us within those or inside of those dispensations, inside those periods of time, or in that period of your destiny. Now, part of what God arranges and what God provides has to do with relationships, friendships, acquaintances. He brings all of these people. He puts these people there. But just because in one dispensation, God puts the people and the things necessary for you to get through, does not mean that in the following dispensation or in the next dispensation or in the succeeding dispensations or periods in time in your walk, in your destiny, that God means for those things that he provided now to go with you over there as well. Remember, in every dispensation, there's already a set of arrangements. When you're single, God provides you, for the most part, okay, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, or sisters, brothers, grandparents, cousins, nieces, nephews, dogs, cats, neighbors, maybe church folk, school folks. He arranges all of this for you. Now, just because he arranges all of this for you, and then you get to the dispensational period of your life where it's time for you to get married, that doesn't mean that you tell your dog, your cat, your cousins, your nieces, your nephews, your brothers, your sisters, your mamas, your daddies, your grandmas, your granddaddies, your church folk, and your neighbors, and them school folk, and all them other folk, all your baseball team, your soccer, basketball team, you, all them, or whoever you feel, y'all come on with me. Y'all, no. That is too much. First of all, again, who's choosing, you or God? Why are you moving forward? What does God have you moving forward for? Definitely not for you to just go and kick it. Definitely not for you to continue living the way that you were living in the dispensation that you just came out of, where more is given or much is given, much is more is required. Well, you're not going to have the time that you once had in that dispensation, in the dispensation that God has you in now. You're not going to have the energy to be able to focus on your marriage and your family, your children and whoever else, and the things that God has for you if you're doing all of these other things as well. You're not going to be able to please two masters. You're not going to be able to please God and Mammon. You're not going to be able to please your household and all the other households that you came out of. You're not going to please everybody, and you're not required to please them all. You're required to please your family. You're required to bring and maintain peace and joy and happiness and a helpful, fruitful environment for your destiny, for the ones you are destined to bring throughout the course of your life. Now, for some people that would include their parents or whatever, or their certain friends or certain. That's not for everybody. I remember when T.D. Jakes moved to Dallas, Texas, he said he told all his family, come on. I want to say his brother, his sister, his mama, of course, his children, some of the people who had been there with him for years prior to him getting to the mega level that he's at today. He brought them. I remember he used to have his bishop with him, or that was his pastor or his bishop. I guess that guy must have since passed, but I would always see him up there on the platform with Jakes. And Jakes brought him with him, and that's a good thing. Carlton Pearson said he lives currently at this recording. He lives with his wife, his children, and their adults, and his mother, and I think his sister. They all live together. God bless them. So some people God does that for. I don't think Carlton's mother agrees with everything that he's doing, because I think he said she's strict Pentecostal or whatever, strict Kojic like or whatever. I'm not sure. Can't remember. But I don't want to misquote. I don't want to add what's not true. So I'll stop right there with it. And if you want to look it up and see it for yourself, you can go ahead and look it up and then correct me if I'm wrong. I don't mean to spread a lie or a rumor. So anyway, I'll leave that alone. But anyway, there are certain people and there are certain callings and certain times where God will have you to bring all of that. But there are some cases where it's Abram, you got to leave without him. Sarah laughed at Abram, when God says you were going to have a baby. Man, please, you better go sit down somewhere. Playing with me at this age. You have other people like Jesus. His ministry was lonely in the sense of family, but I think his brother was with him. He had a brother who may have been with him, if I'm correct, or I'm pulling in my head through stuff. You see people like Paul and his partner, they were together for a while and then they broke apart. God doesn't always pull everybody with you, and you have to know personally where your life is and what God is doing with you. This isn't going to be done the same way across the board. And your members, those who claim to love you, if they truly are loving you or walking in love with you, and if they are mature enough and have eyes to see and ears to hear, they will appreciate God's hand on you and they will not fight against you. They will not work against you. But the problem is people do not see the hand of God on our lives. The Bible says a prophet is with honor except in his own household. People can receive who you are and what you do and the sacrifices you make when it comes to God, when it has nothing to do with them, or when you are not in relationship with them. But when you have relationship with them, it's hard for them to receive you. It's hard for them to see God's hand on you. I remember when God chose my wife for me, and I know the Bible said, a man who chooses a wife chooses a good thing. It's a gift from the Lord and all this, whatever. God chose this woman for me. He asked me, do you want her as your wife? And I paused and I thought for a bit. And I said, yes. I didn't even know her. I knew of her. I had just met her a day or two, maybe hours before. But he asked me, and I said, yes. And there we had it. He said, all right, don't do anything. I'll do it. And I did things. And I got messed up over it. I'm talking throughout the years because God told me he would do it. And I tried to do it. But anyway, ain't nobody less guilty than me anyway. So anyway, God chose her for me. And he asked me in regards to it, but he already had her chosen for me because when I didn't want her, he told me, you're going to need her. That's who I chose for you. You got to have her. That's who I chose. Okay, God. Now, when God chose her for me, I had a member of her family say to me, I understand that God works like this, but I didn't think, I don't believe God is doing it in my family. And that's how people are who are familiar with you. I have people who know me from my younger years. They cannot receive the change that I've had. They only envision me in the person that I once was or in the person that they perceived me to be. I believe that you are not the person of the act. Although you may indeed commit the act, you're not the person of the act. Just because you lie don't mean that you are a liar necessarily. You lied. In that instance, you may be a liar, but you're not the liar, and you're not the lie necessarily. Well, that's how it is when it comes to God or when it comes to my past. I may have committed the act of lying or stealing or whatever. I may have committed the act, but that doesn't make me a murderer. That doesn't make me the act itself. People like to define you based upon the act. So if you lied, they say that old liar, 30 years later, you ain't nothing but a liar. Now, they only know that you lied that one time, but now they're going to brand your whole life as a lie and brand you as a liar over the one lie that they know for sure. That's what's wrong with people who know you from your past or who were with you in different dispensations. They cannot receive who you are in God and where God is taking you, where your destiny has landed you, which is why you can't be pulling them everywhere. Now, I'll go even a little deeper, even when it comes to your siblings. You can't bring your siblings with you. I have siblings who still don't understand me, who still find it hard to hear me or to receive me. Maybe upon hearing me on multiple occasions, they may begin to accept some greater level of where I am in God, but where they want to see me and where they want to seem to keep me is where they had me or where they knew me from before. You can't even bring your siblings into where God is taking you. If it's a marriage, if you have a marriage and your sibling has never been married, or your siblings have not embraced the level of maturity that is necessary to understand marriage or the requirements in marriage from the God point of view, that makes you unequally yoked with them. There's nothing but potential problems there. There's nothing but potential issues there. They're not going to be able to help you. I've gone to some of mine, my own, and they could not understand what I was going through and what I was experiencing. And it was amazing to me. And just because a person has been married for a number of years doesn't mean that they possess the maturity and the discipline and the understanding the principles of marriage. Because if they didn't live by principle, if they weren't living with character and integrity, they don't have anything to say to you necessarily until they learn how to live it in their own life for the most part. But you're opening yourself up to a lot of things when you start pulling in other people into your life because they won't understand God's instructions to you, his specific instructions to you, his requirements of you. They won't understand that. They won't understand the decisions that you make, the decisions that your spouse is telling you is necessary. Because people see it as being brainwashed, or they see it as you leaving them, or you think you're better than them, or whatever. They just can't see the hand of God and then give you their so-called blessings and let you go and do God's purpose and plan. It's not like you're going to join a cult or anything. You're just trying to follow God's way for you. And you have to know God's way for you, or you will land yourself in a lot of trouble. You will lose your marriage. You'll lose your children. Now let's go back to children. Let's go to children. Even though your children, some people, their children came, okay, I'll just speak from me. My children came from my dispensational period upon my being converted by mine, and then meeting my wife, and then getting married to her, and then several years later starting to have kids. I do have one child that was before my conversion period. But anyway, in regards to the ones that I have in this converted period, this converted state, these kids were everything to me. I sacrificed for these kids wholly and greatly. I spent the many nights crying for them. I spent years praying for them before they even came on sight. Before I even knew I wanted to have a kid, I prayed for my kids. I prayed over them. I prayed. When they were babies, I prayed. I would grab one and put them in my arm and pray for hours. I would pray for them. I had declarations of faith and confessions of faith, hundreds, and I would just do this daily, morning and night. I'd do it driving in the car. I meant well for my family. I did it for my children. I laid my career down for my children. I laid my 401k down for the sake of my children. I laid everything down for the sake of my family, with my wife included. I laid it for her as well. I gave up enough to say, ouch, for my kids. And I set them up. And I always told my children, well, in their upper years of teen, I said, one thing you all will get from me. First of all, I'm not going to teach you about hell or heaven. I'm not going to teach you about the devil. I'm going to tell you about the love of God, the grace of God, and the forever mercies of God. I'll tell you about the fact that there's therefore now no condemnation. I'll tell you these things, and I'll even give you the aspect of the church only in the sense of letting you know what others believe and how others believe, and why others will act and behave and think and decide how they act, think, and decide. But I will not drown you with this. And I will not send you to public schooling. If you follow what I'm telling you, you'll leave this house a virgin. You'll leave this house with good principles, good understanding of God. You won't be on any drugs or alcohol. And you won't have to deal with pregnancy or getting in trouble with the law. That's what I promise my kids. If you just listen to me, I'll get you out of here like that. And each of my kids, all who were homeschooled, they left the house just like that. But I also told them, I have the responsibility of giving you a clean slate and presenting you with a clean slate. No one misusing or abusing your Social Security number. Your Social Security being clean and pure. No one having used it. You know how people like to use their children's Social Security number to get them out of stuff, or to get stuff in their name or whatever, because theirs is bad. I didn't do any of that, and I didn't sell our kids to people who were trying to get tax money. People tried throughout the years, family and others. And I didn't do that because I was not going to sell my kids. I wasn't going to mess up their future. I wasn't going to build a lie upon their backs, the shoulders of their Social Security card or number or name. I said, but when I give you this clean slate and I put you out here into this world, you go out into this world, it's up to you to keep that slate clean. That's all I can do. Now, when you get out there in that world and you start seeing things different, and you start behaving differently and you're wanting to try all of these new things that are not helpful to you and are not in line with the things that I taught you, then you do what you got to do. Now, when that stuff starts to interfere with my home and what I'm doing with my spouse and where I'm taking the kids who are still here, you are no longer welcome to just come here or pop up here anytime you want to and thinking you're going to bring that lifestyle into here and mess up the flow of where God is taking me. Then I had to deal with the experiences of having to separate myself from even certain of my children because they were choosing to not do the things that they were raised to do and the things that would maintain the unity and the cohesion, the bit that was here at the time, at those periods. I had to cut them off. I had to say, even though you're in this, you've been in my dispensation, in dispensation past, prior to you leaving, I see now that you are not appropriately fit to continue in a close knit way with what I'm doing and what's going on in my household because you don't know how to handle it now. Now you're trying to come and convert me and convert my rules and regulations and my standard. You're trying to convert it to becoming that of your own, which is a very, very low bar that you hold for yourself, that you hold yourself to. And I can't allow that to happen. So there's even times where even your very children will have to be released from where God is taking you. I've had my kids say, I don't want to hear that God stuff. I never thought I would hear that, but I've had to hear that. I'm not ready for that. Daddy, don't give me that stuff. I don't want to hear that. Daddy, don't tell me about no Bible verse. What can you say? But what you do know is you understand it's at that point that you realize I can't bring them with me. They're not to go any further with me. I had to figure that out and find that out for myself and go through that. And that hurt because you want the ones you love. You want these people to go with you. You want them to be a part of you. But that's not always the case. Everyone can't go with where God is bringing you. Your destiny demands more character and integrity than you were required to present in past dispensations and in past relationships and past friendships and acquaintances. You can't allow the people of your past dispensations to interfere with your present destiny, or you'll end up dwindling back into the wretched state that you were in, and you don't want to watch your destined life be lived without you. You don't want to be in your destiny living everything but your destiny. And the reality of yesterday can never fit into the reality of today. You cannot return to Egypt and then think that the milk and honey and the promises of God, which is what the milk and honey represents, is going to be obtained in Egypt. The promises of God are found in your promised land, found in your destiny, found in your purpose. And that milk and honey isn't going to flow like that in your purpose if you're trying to live in a different dispensation in time, or you're pulling other people from different dispensations and periods of time of your life into where you are now. There'll be a hindrance. Egypt symbolizes everything that you left in your past before your union with your spouse or with whatever, with your destiny. Egypt is every relationship that enslaves you to it in them and does not allow you to embrace your divine promise, your destiny, or it fails to, or they fail to encourage you, have the ability to encourage you and to affect you positively toward the completion of your destiny. Your promised land, your destiny can never be obtained in Egypt. Your destiny establishes the divine relationships that are in your promised land. God determines what relationships you hold in your land of promise, who can go there and who can't. And those relationships that God established are built upon truth rather than deception and lies and cunningness. Your divine relationships are greater than any physical bloodline or other friendship that can be found or that was assigned to you in your Egypt or in your past dispensational periods in time. Egypt or those past dispensations had their divine purpose and their collection of divine relations. But what was designed in purpose in Egypt is not necessarily divine in purpose for you in your destiny or in your promise, in the periods of your promise. Your promised land, your destiny cannot include, not necessarily, the relationships and friendships of your Egypt experience of your times past. You cannot bring Egypt into your land of promise if Egypt is not in line with or part of your divine purpose. You need to be able to understand the two dispensations and the different dispensations and periods of your life so that you can stop going back and forth trying to commingle with what is before you now with what was before you back then, or that is behind you now from back then. You cannot serve two opposites. You will be disturbed. You'll be confused. You'll be double-minded if you try to. One cannot commingle with the other effectively without it affecting you negatively. Two gods equals an unstable mind, period. You cannot try to serve your outdated, established relations and friendships that were meant for the context of your past or of your Egypt, and then try to serve your current relations of your destiny that are meant only for and in the context of your destiny. Egyptian relationships cannot accept the strict adherences of the God principles and therefore are mostly forbidden, for only relationships of your purpose or relative to your purpose can see and hear and follow the God principles that hold you throughout your purpose. Don't allow the relationships of your past to hinder you in your now, especially when those relationships are out of alignment with your destiny, your marriage. If they don't agree with your marriage, release them. Bid them Godspeed and keep moving. Got to produce good fruit. The relationships, the friendships and all have to work toward your destiny and not against it. That's the way it has to be. That's the way God set it up to be. Outside of God's way, it won't work. There's a verse in the Bible that says, without me, you can do nothing. I can go further and say, without listening to what God says, nothing you do will be productive. Not in the sense that you think. God's productivity is not necessarily your productivity, especially if what you call productive is so much less than what God calls productive. You will see junk as being productive. Embrace the relationships of new. Embrace the relationships and the things that God has for you in line with your purpose, that are in line with your destiny. Stop reaching back and forget the things that are behind, pressing forward towards the mark of your destiny, the high prize of your destiny, and leave the other stuff alone. Whatever is not good for you is harmful for you. Whatever is not helping the situation is hurting the situation, hurting your marriage, hurting your destiny, your productivity. Keep the conversation going.